Carlos, what's up, buddy?
Eric, how's it going, man?
Doing great, doing great. It's awesome to be with you today. It's been a long time since we've been on camera together, huh?
Far too long, but it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure.
You know, I was thinking, I think the last time was at the end of SHOT Show 2020.
I think so, too. We had a lot of footage that we shot. I think we had a little bit too much of each other, and I think this pandemic has definitely helped keep us from, with social distancing. It's really helped. So
Nice. Well, hey, it actually made me think a little bit about SHOT Show 2020, and one of the brands that we were actually really introduced to for the first time, Kansept Knives.
Definitely, yeah.
So it's pretty neat, man, and we've actually both done a bunch of work with Kansept Knives over the past few months. I mean, SHOT Show 2020, that was back in January. Here we are now moving forward, and we've actually both had some great opportunities to work with Kansept Knives and get some of their blades in our hands now. It's kind of funny because to me, and I don't know if you've run into this, but you know those like little blue boxes that you probably bought like your girlfriend or your wife, for me, I know that, I bought a few of those blue boxes in my life. Well, now we get these like nice little black boxes that show up. And yeah, for me, it's kind of like the equivalent of those little blue boxes. And we just had a couple of these show up sort of unannounced. What about you?
Yeah, weirdest thing. And again, it's funny you mentioned that, the keyword unannounced. We had done some coverage with Kansept because we knew the people who started Kansept because of the prior knife company that they came from, and not only the designer but the person that's basically the forefront of the brand. And we expressed that we were very willing to go ahead and check out their knives, and we were going to give them an honest opinion. We met up with them at SHOT Show, which was great because it was the one time they were able to get their knives out in the public for them to see and to touch and to look at, and at least the preliminary inventory, because a lot of the knives hadn't even been produced yet. And again, going back to the pandemic, it hit. And then, not only did the supply chain lines, get backed up for months, but a lot of people were basically like, wow, these are great designs. When can I see them? When can I look at them? So we were able to get those knives, at least one or two of those knives in the hand. I know for myself, I actually got the Kansept, the mini Cryo, which is this guy right here. I did a video on this one, and basically it's the blue anodized mini version of the Kansept Kryo, and S35Vn steel. Great knife. This wasn't one that they had at. Okay, so you have the full size version. Okay, we'll get to that. It was a really good design. I did a video on it and I gave my honest opinion. I mean, the grind lines were very well done. Just, the fit and finish, it took a couple of design cues from a knife that the designer, Kim Ning, I believe, had designed before he had gone to work with Kansept Knives. But it ended up being something that was executed very well, because not only was there the mini version, but there was the large or the standard size version, which I believe that's the one that you have in your hand today, correct?
Exactly. So nice. Well, we'll cover that in detail in a little bit. I wanted to ask you just a kind of a funny question. And, I started this whole discussion by talking about the box. Now, personally, I think Kansept's doing a great job with their packaging. And I know that, we're talking about a package, but how do you conceptually feel about packaging and when you get, the box in your hands, and how it makes you feel about the product you're about to take a look at?
Well, and I think that some people could agree, especially those who are more knife enthusiasts, is that when you have a new company, first impressions are very big. And with everything that happened, as a result of the pandemic, you could have all of these designs. You can talk about these fantastic materials and how they perform in the field and how they're made to fit your hand, the ergonomics, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, while that aesthetic is very promising, a lot of what leads up to that is presentation. And I know this is going to sound kind of crude, but think of it as sex. You can have great sex without foreplay, but good foreplay can make the sex that much better, and I think, it's the honest truth. And I think that is what, good presentation, the box is, having, like a cloth, a cleaning cloth, or just another little slip maybe to go ahead and place your knives in when they're, in use or in storage, after use when they're in storage or travel. These are little things that I think some companies, take into consideration and others do not. And as an example, and I'm not putting this, I'm not saying that they're doing anything wrong, but say, for example, Kershaw. Okay, Kershaw. This is one of their U.S. made models. But the box itself, you open it and there's a plastic bag, there's an instruction, and then there's a knife itself. And then adversely, there's Benchmade. Now, you open the Benchmade box. It's a very easy to open box. It has the pouch, it has the knife, the instruction manual. It's a little bit more presentation. When you have something like Kansept actually has it set up so where you have the box, you open it up this way. It's very, very dramatic. You have your instructions and your clean cloth. Then you open this up, and then boom, the package. And then you open this up, and then that's where the knife is. And I think,
yeah, even look at the detail. Look at the detail that they go into on that inner pouch, where you've got that slip, and the first thing is they get the name and the logo perfectly placed. That slip is different from other companies out there, so it's unique, which I like. It's not the same sort of zippered pouch that you get with a lot of knives, so that's nice. And it's simple, it's functional, and it's very compact, which is great.
I agree, and the thing is, it plays well with others. You don't necessarily have to use this with Kansept knives, or you can use this with more than one. You can use this for travel. You can put this into your bug out bag so that it's not, clinking around with your multi-tool or anything else. It's a nice means of being able to, organize everything. I know a lot of people that are OCD, and then they know when they see this in their pack or in their bag or anywhere else, whether it's, dark or not, they know, okay, this is where my knife is. I'm going to take it out, open it, take out my knife, and then, put it on and just get to work. So I think that it hits not only with functionality, but presentation and aesthetics. It sets the bar very high. And that's very daring for a new company, because when you set the bar high and then the knife underperforms, it makes you feel, it gives you a lackluster experience. Knives nowadays are not cheap. Good knives, it could be, there's some good budget knives, but when you have knives like this, they have knives that range anywhere from, the $50-ish range going well into the 200s. And you reach almost a point of diminishing returns once you start to get to a larger value. So when you see all of this being put into it, and then you see the knife, and then the knife performs, you realize that higher value is substantiated because of the fact that they not only make it look good, but it performs well too. So I think that's setting the bar very high for a relative newcomer, just going into finishing their freshman year as a knife company. So I'll tip my hat to Kansept on that one.
Yeah, that's great. And no, I'm glad you said that, because I do, and packaging, it can go either way for me, but I've always said that a company that's paying attention to the details on the packaging is paying attention to the details on their blades. And that's definitely the case with Kansept. Each one of the knives that I have held has been remarkable. So far, fit and finish has been absolutely excellent. And one of the things that you talked about when we first got this rolling, and you were talking about the mini Cryo and the Cryo, is the Kim Ning design. Now, the first, I believe Kansept, it was either 7 or 8 models that they first came out with right at the beginning, and those are the models that we saw at SHOT Show 2020. Now, moving forward, they're actually expanding their line, and from what I can tell, they seem to be expanding it fairly quickly. And they're actually bringing on additional designers at this point. So not just Kim Ning designs, but there are other designers, and actually some pretty familiar names, and a couple of guys that not only have we covered them at the shows, call it Blade Show, and not really so much SHOT Show, but we saw them at Blade Show, and actually have interviewed some of them myself personally, and I know that you've talked with these guys.
Yeah.
Mikael Williamson, so that's a familiar face. Covered him on my channel, talked to him at Blade Show, and also, and one of my favorite guys, and I'm thrilled to see that he's working now with Kansept, we got Dirk Pinkerton. So, and there's a couple other guys, we'll talk about them in a minute, but what are your thoughts now that you see guys like Mikael Williamson as well as Dirk Pinkerton entering the fold with Kansept Knives?
Well, the truth is, I think I honestly I like it a lot. They have it's a very confident choice in designers. I think they bring a lot to the table, not only name wise but design wise. I think that they've proven, aside from the fact that they're good designers, that they can provide some variety. They can bring some variety to the table. Dirk Pinkerton makes some excellent fixed blades, and even his folders. He comes from a tactical standpoint, but he can also create fantastic EDC knives, and he brings it from experience, from true experience. Matt Degnan, another USA knife maker that is going to be working with Kansept. He's another one that brings a lot to the table. He's actually a maker that not only produces production knives through companies like Kansept and some others, but he produces his own knives, and he's one of the few that he does everything in his garage. He's a hand to tool kind of guy. And I like seeing that because that means he puts a lot of thought and heart into his productions. And I hope that when his designs are produced through Kansept, that we see that done. But I can honestly say, with everything that I've seen so far from Kim Ning, who in itself is a great designer. His ideas have been really executed, not only like I said, aesthetically, but functionally. With the action, with how it feels in the hand, with different versions. Like I said, the budget, which is actually now just now coming out, the budget lines, and the higher value ones. I think that a lot of these designers have a good means of bringing their thought processes to the table and watching them come into life. I think that they're gonna bring a lot of good quality to the table, and I'm really excited. Again, I'm a huge fan of Dirk. I think Justin Lundquist is going to be working with them too. Oh, wow. Another really good quality designer. Mikael Williamson, I actually did a review on some of his knives because he has his own line that he actually produced recently. But I love his Chibs design, which is through his own personal production line, and I can only say if they're getting on it, it's because of the fact that they know the quality that stands behind Kansept, and I can stand behind that too if they're willing to. So,
and I think another just tidbit of information, and what's interesting, and again, just going back to the same two guys, and now that you bring up even Justin Lundquist, I mean, this is a group of guys that now are working with Kansept, but they've actually all worked with a lot of the same manufacturers in the past. So they're this kind of like core group of guys, and I'm sure they know this about each other. They must, but they kind of pack together, and they've done a lot of work with a number of different companies at this point. And then on top of having their own blades, their own designs, their own lines, now they have this sort of collaboration and camaraderie, and you just see that they're bringing their similar design flair through all these other companies, and these guys have a major influence, not only on the companies, but on the industry.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I really like that everybody is playing well, and playing together, and achieving more as a result. It's no secret to look on the news or see on the internet or look at your phone and be bombarded with stories about how everybody is trying to individualize and be recognized for being who they are, and to be the kind of person that really doesn't need a production company to be able to release a knife, having the designs needed to be able to go ahead and create their own knives, but know that companies like Kansept are importing the steels, and heat treating them properly. That these steels, the S35 is being imported from the United States. The 154 cm, I believe that they're going to be working with 20 CV in the near future if they haven't already. These sort of things, they know it's coming from quality sources. They know it's been treated well. I'm pretty sure that people like Dirk have actually been to the factories and actually seen some of the processes and the heat treatments that go into their knives, and they've tested them out themselves before, even seeing it hit the market. So for them to be able to see that back end and, have a peek behind the curtain and approve of it, they work with knives far more than I mean, I'm a knife shill compared to that, So, and I mean, you coming from, the fact that you are also a designer and that you have actually, you have your knives, and that you've taken the time and you've tested them and you chose the company that you went with because of the confidence that they brought to the table. And, that feeling where you can stand behind the knife, even though you didn't make it yourself. That says a lot about a company, especially when it's new. And they had that previous relationship because of the fact that this company comes from, a kind of a spinoff of another. And, they're kind of taking that concept to the next level. And I like that. I really dig that. I think that this is a really good first step. Kim with his designs and then bringing these other designers to the table. I think that 2021 is going to be a really strong year for them going into 2022. And you brought something else up earlier that I did want to touch up on. Listening. Everybody wants to just talk. Everybody wants to talk about how good they are. Kansept is a company that when we first reached out to them, and they actually reached out to us, honestly, but when they first reached out to us, they listened to the kind of feedback that we had, the kind of materials we liked, the kind of steels we liked working with. The kind of designers. And I'm a part of their Facebook page. I believe you may be as well. And, they have a lot of input, that they solicit from their followers, the people that subscribe to their Facebook. And they actually don't just let it fall on deaf ears and just make it look like they're listening to them like some other companies may. They're actually doing stuff with that because they're small enough to be able to experiment, find out what works, what actually works, instead of just coming out with something very aesthetic, very nice, and then pandering to, the knife collector. They want to have something that's nice, but kind of panders to not only the knife collector, but the knife enthusiast and the knife user. So while breaking it into different dichotomies, they're able to kind of merge that into one and create, this nice whole community where everybody can say cohesively, that's a good brand. And that's great.
Yeah, and I think that speaks perfect to pretty much, in reality, why we're actually here talking today and what kicked this off. So, Kansept, interestingly, took the, I would say, philosophy that to get into the market, they were going to start with their highest end product. And now they've started to work backwards. So for a company to come out of the gate and say, listen, this is the top quality product, and I bet you actually we're going to see even higher quality. So this is probably only their mid-tier if I had to guess.
Oh yeah.
But they came out with this extremely nice high-end product right from the beginning. And now that you say working backwards to maybe another demographic, or maybe less the collector and more the user, now they're starting to get actually into more of a budget line. And that's kind of, like I said, what brought us here. So here in my hands, I have the full-size Cryo. Now, the very first Cryo that I got my hands on is the titanium frame lock S35Vn steel. Well, now moving forward, actually, Carlos, you have one of these as well, but a little bit different than the one I have in my hands, right? So this is the budget line, brand new to Kansept Knives. Right here, this is a D2 tool steel. We end up here with a G10 handle, a little bit simplified. This is a liner lock, so not the frame lock like you see on the titanium model. Lightens the load a little bit, but it also lightens the wallet. And at this point, gets this knife into somebody's hands that just quite frankly might not have been able to get into the Kansept lineup prior to today.
I agree. And I spoke with the company prior to even visiting them at SHOT Show, and that was a big concern of mine. They asked me what I thought of the products, and I gave them my honest opinion. The products, for being prototypes, they were very nice. The action was very good. The materials used, you can tell that the milling was done correctly. Whenever they did inlays like micarta or carbon fiber inlays and titanium, there was no pitting. Everything was nice and flush with the contoured handles, which is even more difficult than having something flush with, say, like a flat handle. So it's like they were adding that little aesthetic, but it was like kind of like an advanced mode. It's not a beginner's mode type of thing. And but I did tell him, I'm like, look, they're great, but you're kind of singling out a certain audience here by coming out with 150, 200, 250, 300 plus knives. What about the average Joe? I mean, there are people that have these knives and they carry them, but like, say myself, for example, I have a nice knife that I'll carry all the time. But if I use it, that's not a problem. I can take it home and I can sharpen and everything. But what if that's the only knife I have and somebody I know has to use it? And do you really feel comfortable giving a $200 knife to somebody that's going to break the tip off of it, or that's going to ruin it, or try to sharpen it in one of those pull through kitchen sharpeners that cuts off all the steel? That would kill me inside, and I mean, just to see. So I think that it was a very logical step in the right direction for them to be able to come up with a budget line. I mean, you see a lot of these the Chinese makers now. You have We Knives that has Svivi. You have Kaiser that has their Vanguard line. You have Bestech even that has their budget line. So it's only natural for them to realize they need to get their name out there. They need to be known as quality, and then honestly, they took it kind of the other way around. Instead of going from budget to upper class, kind of like that higher end, and then going back into budget. And I think that was a smarter move, because when you introduce a good budget knife, it's harder to sell a more expensive knife, because you're like, why the hell would I want that when I've got this and it works great as it is? Why do I have to shell out that additional cash? So in the end, I think that their business model was actually pretty smart, because they got some people to realize that, these higher end models, they actually work well. And then they're like, okay, I have them. So what do I do now? Well, now we have these budget, models. Go ahead and check them out. They have different, they have the micartas, they have the G10. Some even have carbon fiber. They have different finishes. I saw yours with the kind of like a black wash, which looks like it's been really done well. Yeah, that's really awesome. And then they have, the stonewash finish. With some of their higher end models, they have like a satin finish. So it's nice to see a nice working finish and working materials for a working man's wage. I mean, not everybody can afford $150, $200 on a knife, especially when you're looking at a company that's just starting.
So stop teasing us. You keep flicking that around. Let's see. That's got a nice thwack to it, huh?
It does, and that's one thing that I wanted to talk about. So this here, like as I mentioned before, this is just under a 3-inch blade. This is the mini Cryo in S35Vn with the blue anodized scales that are titanium. I did a review on this one on my Facebook page. Excuse me, not on my Facebook page, but my YouTube. And it actually got really good feedback from a lot of the people that saw it. So, but aside from that, they have the larger version. Now, this actual version of the knife, this is the full-size version, just like the one that you have there. It's just over 8 inches long. We're talking about just under 3.6 inches in blade length, but has that grippy canvas micarta handle. I love good micarta. And instead of going with a nice smooth micarta that would look nice, they realize the working man is going to get their hands wet. They're going to get their hands dirty. So they want something that's grippy. And the canvas micarta, and just the way that it's been very lightly, almost roughed up, almost like an unfinished type of feel. I don't know, particularly on this one, because I have to use it a bit more, but with the fixed blades and even the other folding knives that I've used, even with gloves, when you get your hands wet, or when this gets wet, it kind of feels like it's got a little bit more grippiness to it. and it feels great in the hand. I mean, their D2 has proven themselves, the Chinese D2 in that particular case, and their S35Vn, their heat treatment has proven to be really well done as well. So, I mean, I don't doubt for a moment that this is going to be well worth just under the $60 mark that they're actually charging for this. And I wouldn't be surprised if they come up with the mini version that it's a little bit less, even more. So we're hitting a lot of sweet spots price-wise that will put it into direct competition with some of the other, larger players in this particular budget knife market. But I think it's a really good step in the right direction because they've proven themselves with better materials. So with this, I mean, if they can keep the cost down, but they can keep that quality high, they might have a winning formula here. I mean, it runs off of bearings, which is kind of the only thing that if it's a working knife, I'm not really big on, but we will see how that goes. I mean, this is very easy to be able to take apart. I did notice that on this one, and yours may be different, I don't know, but this particular knife, all of the screws that are a part of this knife are T8. Now, that's something that a lot of people don't realize, and this comes into play when it comes to listening to feedback. T6 screws are the Achilles heel of most knives, especially when you have soft metals that are being used for screws. You get a little T6 Torx pit driver, and you try and drive it into that, and it's got red Loctite in it, or if it's been drilled, if it's been over, screwed in, you can very easily strip your Torx bit, or you can strip the screw in there, and then you're basically screwed. And then you have to drill it out. You have to find out, or you chuck it, or you sell it on the secondary. Don't tell anybody, and then they have to deal with somebody else's problem. But with a T8 screw, you have a much better opportunity to be able to get that nice positive lock, onto that screw, and to be able to unlock it and lock it, regardless of the type of Loctite that's used. People have been trying to get companies to do that for years, and some are still using T6. Yep. There might be some good quality models out there that are still using T6, but from what I gathered on this, I mean, it's looking like T8. The pivot is T8.
Yep.
The screws are T8 as well on the actual body as well. I mean, that right there is worth checking this out, because they've got little details like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And funny that you brought that up, because it kind of took some of the thunder out of my statement, which is, and I took this knife apart in preparation for this video. Now, for any of the people watching, they may or may not realize, but I am actually the Bestech Knives service representative for the United States territory. It's my job to take knives apart and to fix them and to prepare the knives for warranty claims and to get them back to customers. And even for somebody who's required to work on knives all the time, it can be a wicked pain in the balls when, a screw is really small, or it strips, or it came to me stripped. I mean, forget about it. If it came to me stripped, you should see the surgery I have to perform. Now, when I took this apart, a few things worth noting. One is, obviously, as you had mentioned, the T8 screws. That's a very big deal. For me personally, as somebody that works on knives all the time, I do like to basically have to remove them from the clip side. It's nice when you can remove from the clip side, protect the show side. Now, it just so happens that this particular knife that came to me, actually the pivot screw was the opposite of the clip side. So I removed the clip side, T8s, but then I had to remove the opposite side. So I have since swapped it and basically fixed the situation. Now, I don't know if that was an oversight in assembly, which it very well might have been, or I don't know if the intent was technically to remove, call it the show side, which I would call, and that's a weird term. I don't know what people define it as, but to me, the clean side, show side, right? So, I guess it depends, but I was actually curious if this ran on bearings or on washers. And for a knife of this size, and again, going back to the working man, I would love, more than anything, to see these companies, and especially to me it's kind of like a Chinese company thing, I feel like, but to get away from the ball bearings and to go to those phosphor bronze washers. I don't want Teflon, I don't want plastic, but the bronze washers, it's nice. You can service them, you can shine them up if you need to, you can oil them. They're durable, you don't get blade play, and you just have something that's a little bit stronger, a little bit stiffer, and the most important part is you don't get sand inside and you get that gritty feel. And I've had some knives that not only do they feel gritty, but they actually kind of bind. And that gets me just a little bit freaked out, because the last thing you want is scouring action and losing that fit and finish that you get with a good tight blade because of the sand in the bearings.
I agree, and it's funny that you mentioned that. I'm going to actually go into that twofold, because I actually have one of Kim Ning's earlier designs prior to his entry into taking over like Kansept and doing his designs with Kansept, and this is actually one that he did through Kaiser, and this is called the Kesmek. I believe you may know about this particular one. This is one that I talked about. When I first picked up this model, this is his Vanguard version of the Kesmek. And it's actually one of their much earlier models that was in VG10, because they actually did away with that and they started providing 154 cm and N690 steel. But to kind of like talk to a little bit about this and shed some light on this particular knife, one thing that has made me keep this, aside from the fact that it is a Kim Ning design, and if you notice, it has that kind of like that whole design here that's very similar to what you see on the Cryo, exactly. And even on this design right here, which they also sent to me, which, if I'm not mistaken, this is the Kansept, the Spirit. The design element makes you want to use this particular hole, because it doesn't have a flipper on this one like it does on the Cryo. Now, with the Cryo, because of the fact that it has a flipper, okay, I actually spoke with one of the representatives over at Kansept. Her name is Joyce, and she basically told me the way that they are going is they want to create their design so that if it's a flipper, it's going to run on bearings, because people want that kind of tactile, responsive action, that thwack, and they get it with this, whether it's the budget or the the higher end version. And when it starts to get gunked up, they still have that opportunity to be able to go ahead and flick it using the hole. You can actually do it that way. You can use it. Yeah, very good.
Some of these.
Let me see if I can do it.
There you can get it to go.
Yeah. Depending on the knife that you have,
this one will do it.
The action can vary. Some of them are very. There you go. Some of them, the detent is a little bit lighter than the others. Yeah. I think if you have a nice snappy detent, it can make or break a knife. There's some that have a really, really light detent, and they're great designs from other companies, and they've kind of ruined that design as a result, because the application is just, it doesn't work out. I think that they worked on that right, especially on these budget models. But going back to the earlier model that he had done, this is actually on phosphor bronze washers, and that's why I kept it. It's not something that I can just open like this. Like, the action is not going to allow me to do that if I try to manipulate the thumb hole. Okay, but if I have something like this that's on bearings, I can actually actuate it very, very quickly using the thumb hole. I can finger flick it, or I can use the flipper, and it works out really well. I mean, there's a lot of people that are fidget minded, and that's a very fidget friendly budget knife. Even if it's one of these, I mean, you can actually use the your index finger. You can actually use your thumb to be able to flick it open, or you can actually flick it just like I did with the other one. With this, you're limited, because I mean, you would have to roll it out, or you would have to finger flick it. Now, for the working class man, they don't care. I mean, I totally get it. When I'm out in the field, I don't care how fidgety it is. I care that it lasts. And that's where phosphor bronze comes into play. So for their flipper knives, they wanted to make sure that there were bearings. And for their thumb studs, their thumb stud actuated knives, they are looking to have something more on the phosphor bronze side. They're experimenting with the detents and with the bearing systems, but they prefer for the phosphor bronze to be on their thumb stud knives. So that's just from what she had told me. Honestly, I like either one. And I disassemble my knives just like you. So, I keep them nice and clean. In the meantime, if they were to get dirty, I know that I can always have that secondary deployment method and it'll be fine. But I would hate for, gunk, like little specks of like sand and particles and stuff like that to get into, the detent ball track, mess up the detent ball or even the track and kind of get that gritty feeling that really takes away from a smooth, deployment with this kind of a knife. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I'm the drop me in the middle of the wilderness type of guy. So, hey, who knows? Hey, if I could have it my way, maybe I'll make my hard use folder with Kansept knives at some point, and I'll put some washers in there.
Definitely, I think that would be awesome. I think that they would be very receptive to it. In all honesty, I mean, judging from the different kind of knives that are coming out, I mean, and the action on these are very, very good. I mean, just take a look at this. This is straight out of the box. I haven't done anything with it. I haven't even carried it yet because this is actually something that just came in the mail earlier this week with the micarta, Cryo. Now, this is the Kansept Spirit. Okay, this is kind of like they say it's a green anodized titanium, but I think it's more like an aqua or like a seafoamy type of color. And then what they've done is they have black anodized hardware. Blackened hardware and the backspacer and the actual blade itself. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like the action on this right out of the box is really well done. I mean, it's nice and centered. I mean, they haven't given me any reason to say right out of the box, this needs to be taken, apart, and maybe I need to kind of clean this here, polish, this and do that. Play with the lock bar because there might be some lock bar stick. This is just a standard flame lock, that works. And yeah, I'm kind of digging the fact that whether it's a $200 knife or that it's a $56 knife, you take it out and it's going to work. So I dig.
Yeah, you know what I like about that particular one, and actually we were talking about this a little bit earlier, is that particular color and that combination. You don't see it all the time. It's different. That to me would be something that's different in my collection. I like that it has a utility shape. I like the overall, the way that it complements. I think the black with that sort of teal blue color just complements. It looks nice. They do a great job. And it's funny you say that you had actually received an additional model in their titanium lineup. I did as well. So this one here, this is the Agent. Nice. So a little bit different, right? Because, I mean, yes, it's a flipper, but at the same time, you end up with a very sleek profile, so a little bit thinner than some of the other blades. And when you look at the Agent, there are different models that you can get your hands on. This one, very straightforward, very plain, but I like it. Very straightforward with that plain titanium, goes into that S35Vn blade, nice satin finish. Not a lot of frills to it, but the simplicity is what catches me. And again, they do a great job with their fit and finish. Beautifully done. And as we look here, obviously a nice deployment. And in terms of drop shut, I mean, it's pretty much there too. So again, running on bearings, nicely done, perfectly centered. All of their machining, very, very precise. No hot spots, no little, areas where you get caught up. This one does have actually, and I think that's the thing. If you look at, and this is one of the original 7 or 8 models, this goes back to the T6s, and I think they've listened since, and that's why you see a lot more, or maybe the T8s now coming on some of the newer models. But now, one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and I'm interested to see how this goes moving forward. So we're talking about introducing the budget lineup, right? Now, There's some companies, and I don't, this is a concept video, and I'm not trying to name drop, but you've already kind of started talking about some other companies, so I'm going to bring some other ones up. If you look at a company like, for example, Steel Will. Now, another guy that we've talked to, Tommaso Ramici, a designer, he actually designed this piercer. Now, the reason why I bring up this specific model is Steel Will has actually created two different versions of this knife. So, you end up with this one having some titanium, this one here being the lighter weight and just, simply that G10 handle scale. Now, again, going from your frame lock design to your liner lock design, well, we got kind of a similar idea going with Kansept, where at this point we're introducing multiple lineups within the same knife design. So now with this Cryo, you end up with your budget version and your sort of higher premium model. Well, do you think that's going to be the same as we move forward, say, into the original 8, like your Agent? I actually, and you've also taken a look at the Warrior, so another knife, the Warrior. Knives that fall in the original lineup. Do you think we're going to start seeing those in the budget versions as well?
I think that sales is going to drive that in the correct direction, whether it's going to happen or not. I think that people's pockets are going to be able to go ahead and discern whether that's going to happen or not. But I think that from the very beginning, the reason why they came out with so many different scale options, finish options, and even blade options, because the Warrior, there are actually more. There's actually more than one blade version. There's the Tanto and the non-Tanto one. That's kind of like a marriage between a Tanto and kind of like a clip or drop point on there. And I think that being that they're still a fresh company, they can experiment like that and come into their own and find what works for the particular audience that they seek, and which is steadily growing. Because I mean, if you look at the feedback from a lot of people on their Facebook page, on their Instagram page, it's not just people singing praises for nice designs. These are people that, ordinary people, not even YouTube, content creators, people that actually work with knives that are sent, say a prototype. Which is unheard of. A lot of these companies are only going to send this type of thing to, the designer or a very high-end, content creator or somebody that works directly with the company all the time. They listen to people and they say, hey, look, we listened to you. We have this version of a knife that we're creating. We have, set up a prototype. Can you take a look at it, thump on it, do everything that you need to do. Tell us where we can improve. And we want to listen to you, That in itself, I mean, and to say that you had a hand in that process and to watch them grow, I think that people's pockets are going to be able to go ahead and bring more of that variety to the table, depending on how their sales end up coming, which they're going to end up doing really well. And I would foresee that you're going to see a lot more of those blade finishes, a lot more of those materials and that sort of thing in the future. I mean, like we said before, micarta, this right here, this canvas micarta, this particular type of micarta, with these kind of ergos and with a proven design that has already done well on, the upper tier steel, with titanium handles and that sort of stuff, for the 200 plus price range, is being offered at a sub $60 range, say I think it's like $56 on Blade HQ or something like that. To see something like this, it's because somebody spoke to them and said, hey, if and when you do a budget line, try this. And they see what's going on with all of these other companies, the Best Techs, the CJRBs, the Civivis, the Vanguard line of Kaiser. They see all of that and they said, okay, that is a burgeoning market. That's a market that's starting to really come into its own, because people are looking away from just, it's got to be made in America, or it's got to have this type of steel. It's got to have this, and they're starting to experiment with companies that are actually, they're kind of looking and drawing outside of the lines, if you will. And I like that about them, because they're doing that from the very beginning, and who knows what tomorrow holds for them. Because if they can do something like this now, let's see what these other designers like Dirk Pinkerton and Justin and Matt Degnan and all of these others can bring to the table, and see, okay, I want to see their high-end designs, and then I want to see what they're doing on the budget end, because that's going to be really cool.
I'll tell you what, and again, being the wilderness type of guy, I think the only other thing that would get me completely jazzed is a nice fixed blade lineup.
I've wondered about that.
So
I've really wondered about that. That is something I think that that Asian companies have had a really difficult time kind of delving into that market. That's something that I believe that the U.S. designers like SE, Ontario Knife Company, different companies within the U.S. are still able to come out with a good quality fixed blade that has been known, through, I mean, just time and testing. I mean, it's been a good quality knife. And a lot of people, when you have something good, it's hard to be able to kind of deviate from that. I mean, you look back, even, when they talk about grandpa's knives, they talk about the US made Camillus knives, or the US made, the shred knives, or even, the K bars,
Yep.
which are still great now. Or, even going so back as saying like the old school, lockback folder from Buck, the 110 and the 112, or even the fixed blades. I mean, I have two of their fixed blades, so it's hard to say, why don't I deviate from that and try this? But the truth is, if they're doing well in the folder market, it's only fair to consider the fact that if they get the right designers there, and if they get the right knife to be produced, I mean, the possibilities are endless. I mean, if they're able to do it in Europe, like say Tana family knives, other companies that are coming out with good quality stuff like Lion Steel, you know, um, Fox knives,
Fox knives. Yep.
of
Exactly.
Maniago, Giant Mouse, all of these companies. I mean, it's slowly starting to kind of head east from the United States, and they're starting to head into Europe, and then, into Asia. I know that there's a couple of models that have been released by companies, but that is still that is still a part of the industry that I think that really is an untapped resource. And I think that in the future, I'd really like to see, like you, some quality fixed blades. I think that once they start to bring in these designers that have good quality folders that they can design and bring to the table, I'm hoping that they can kind of tap into those resources and see if they can maybe come out with, a fixed blade here, a fixed blade there, and see how the market actually accepts it. I mean, I know Dirk, for example, makes fantastic fixed blades as well as his folding knives, and they don't have to be large fixed blades. He makes small neck knives that you can put right here, and unbeknownst to anybody, you can be walking around with a blade, especially with a lot of states here that have size restrictions, or even places in Europe that don't even allow a locking, folding knife. Have a really small fixed blade to use for utility, self-defense, a little get off me type of thing, and I mean, it would work really well. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity and an application for that type of thing. So hopefully, we can see that kind of a design element poured in from Kansept.
Yeah. So I guess only time will tell. But at this point, obviously, a very interesting, I would say, end of the third quarter, fourth quarter of the Kansept's freshman year, as you would put it. So it'll be really cool to see what turns the corner. And they're letting on to a lot of their designs, but they have to be holding on to some of them, because pretty soon, before you know it, well, if things go well, we're going to see ourselves a SHOT Show 2021, and that's where all the new designs come out, and we start to see what's going to happen for the new year. So I'm hoping that if things go well, Carlos, we're going to have hopefully ourselves our sophomore event going to SHOT Show, and we'll get ourselves hopefully 50 plus feature videos, including a stop at the Kansept booth.
I really look forward to that. I think that you and I can speak from experience that from the first time we attended, a trade show together, there was a lot that we had to learn, and there were a lot of relationships that we made along the way. And then coming back, kind of as a return to familiarity, it was nice, because we came back not only with the opportunities that we had before, and learning and kind of working in this interesting relationship between you and the way that you do things, and I and myself, the way that I do things, and then the people we've met along the way. It was like a return to familiarity, and I think SHOT Show was nothing even close to what I thought it would be. man, I gotta bring some compression socks. I gotta bring some shoes. I mean, I gotta bring some cough drops because we have a lot of people we have to converse with. But I think if we have that opportunity to go back to SHOT Show, it's going to be great. I think that we're going to be walking in, checking out, I mean, companies like Kansept with some new designs that, like you said, they haven't really brought to the table just yet because they're kind of keeping for that big scene scenario, kind of like that red carpet unveiling. This is what we've got.
Yeah.
I can't wait, honestly.
Nice. Well, Carlos, as always, man, great to spend the time with you here. I love talking blades. I love talking blades with you. I think we bring up some interesting points, some good concepts. And obviously, we've had our opportunity really over the past few months to work with a great company, get to know them a little bit better, and sort of see where they're going with this stuff. So, buddy, appreciate it, man.
Take it easy, bro. Nice seeing you.
We'll talk soon.
Take care.